you an expert, entrepreneur, or small business owner passionate about helping people through life's transitions? The Fresh Starts Expert membership is perfect for you. For just $55 per month, this dynamic membership is designed to boost your business and amplify your brand. Fresh Starts is here to provide you with business development, marketing, coaching, networking, publicity, community engagement, and more. With an SEO-optimized profile, exclusive press opportunities, and weekly co-working and business coaching sessions, you'll connect, grow, and gain visibility like never before. Are you ready to elevate your brand? We can't wait to work with you. Visit freshstartsregistry.com and become a Fresh Starts expert today.
Welcome back to A Fresh Story, the podcast where we have conversations about brave decisions to start over again. I'm Olivia.
And I'm Jenny. And we're so glad you're here today.
As an actor, author, and patient advocate, Taylor Coffman has captivated audiences with her unique blend of humor and authenticity, sharing her inspiring story of survival and resilience following a rare and violent disease diagnosis. Taylor's acting career includes notable roles on shows like HBO's Silicon Valley and CBS's Life in Pieces, which we love, as well as experience in comedy with Upright Citizens Brigade and Jimmy Kimmel Live. Her life changed dramatically during the birth of her daughter, leading to a near-death experience which inspired her to become a patient advocate. Taylor's story of patient empowerment has resonated widely. Her Huffington Post article, "I Spent Weeks Near Death in the ICU, Asking My Doctors to Do This One Thing May Have Saved My Life," topped Apple News and garnered nearly 1 million impressions in 48 hours. As a keynote speaker at various conferences and author of her Substack, Rare Disease Girl, Taylor continues to advocate for patients and raise awareness about life with chronic illness. She lives in Santa Monica with her husband, Zach, who is a podcast guest and we're big fans of, her daughter, JJ, and rescue dog, Sunny, and she's currently writing a book that aims to educate and advocate for patients, blending her experiences in comedy and project management with her journey through challenges of chronic illness. Taylor, we're so excited to have you here today. What an amazing bio. Wow, you've done so many things.
It's always so awkward to hear someone read your bio at you.
I know. We talk about that a lot because we were going back and forth. We say this. We started the podcast reading people's bios, and then we were like, maybe we shouldn't read them. But then people were really empowered by hearing their own bios. So we really like it. So just for listeners, we kind of met you by way of your husband, who I'm a big Dust Bowl Revival fan. We had Zach on almost 2 years ago at this point. And when we were talking to Zach, he was like, you have to talk to Taylor. And in that time, you were still really in recovery mode.
Yeah.
Very much.
When you talked to him, it was real fresh.
Yeah.
When we talk about fresh, it was fresh.
Yeah. So I've been following your journey and your health and your just everything you're doing. And it's been so beautiful. So we're really happy to have you here. Thank you for taking the time.
Oh my gosh. I'm thrilled to be here. And I love what you all are doing. This is amazing. And the registry is great. And I think, I think, look, we're all just trying to make some lemonade out of situations that were hard and help others. Yeah. And that's, I think that's the whole purpose of what we're all supposed to be doing here with each other as 100%. Humans.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. How are you doing today? You're in Santa Monica. I imagine it's lovely there.
Actually, it's funny. Because we're recording this in June. Mm-hmm. So actually it's June gloom season. So outside, especially in the first parts of the day, it's pretty gray actually. Okay. So it keeps us a little cooler, which is nice because I think the rest of the country right now is
we're hot.
It's very hot. It's very hot. So we're not.
I love that.
So in comparison, it might be lovely.
And how's our little JJ today? What's she up to?
Oh my gosh, we're in the thick of potty training.
Yeah.
Which is its own fresh start story.
Oh my God. I know. I want to do a whole season just about the reality of parenthood and like really talking shit about it because it is so hard. It's so hard.
I mean, honestly, you know, everything we went on a wild ride. And I would say, like, when it comes to parenting, honestly, it's a joy in a sense, but it can be both a stressful joy and an exhausting joy.
Absolutely. Oh no, we lost Jenny. Okay, Taylor. Well, I'm going to ask you to take us back to the beginning of your fresh start story. So I would love to hear everything.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. My fresh start, it's funny. The term fresh just it was not fresh at all.
Yeah. It was a forced fresh start.
Yeah. You know, I think a lot of beautiful fresh starts involve agency and personal decisions. And mine, I was very much like thrust into a tornado. To go back to the beginning, I gave birth to a healthy baby girl via C-section in January of 2021.
Yep.
I, however, was not left so healthy within like moments of her birth. I just rapidly started dying. And it was, I mean, it's even hard for me to like, even personally, like wrap my brain around all the things that I went through, especially in those first 5 weeks. It was like truly crazy. The amount of challenges, from heart failure to kidney failure to like clots in most of my major organs, cognitive issues. I mean, it was, at one point I like couldn't wake up from anesthesia, but I could hear like trapped in my body. Like it was a level of, I mean, at one point my brain was being poisoned by my own toxins. And so I saw everything 3 times. Like it was a true nightmare. It was a true nightmare. And we just didn't know if I was going to ever make it home. And we were, all these things were going wrong with me. And even my medical team, you know, I was sort of like a medical mystery for a bit because they were like unsure what was going wrong, except for the fact that they knew everything was going wrong.
Yeah.
And essentially, you know, thank goodness I had some amazing doctors, and they eventually discovered that I had triggered a rare disease upon the birth of my daughter. Because my pregnancy was so like routine, nothing flagged. And so like, it was like I gave birth and then it like awoke this very sort of violent rare disease that essentially, it's called atypical hemolytic uremic syndrome or complement-mediated thrombotic microangiopathy. Wow. And it essentially, it's not autoimmune, but it performs similarly if you're familiar with autoimmune diseases, in that this piece of my body started attacking itself. It was an overreaction.
Right.
It's kind of ironic that sometimes we all overreact to protect ourselves in life a little bit.
Yeah.
And this was, I think, you know, my body went through this stress event of pregnancy or in birth, you know, and my body just like overreacted and started attacking its own cells.
Yeah.
And that caused tiny, tiny blood clots, but but so many tiny blood clots that they were all over my kidneys. And then they clumped in my lungs and in my heart and all over my pelvis. So it was like, it was a true challenge to keep me alive.
Wow. And nobody had any, So, and at the time, nobody had any idea, right, what was really happening. No. Like, it was just, and when you say, like, you immediately started dying, that was really
my same question.
Yeah, like that phrase. You really did immediately start dying.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I you know, the actual, like, taking it back to the moment, I remember that, you know, she was born, right? And I didn't even get to see her. Like, Zach got to see her cut the cord. For me, I could hear her. And they had to check her out because she was born sunny side up, if anyone knows that term. Yep. So they had to make sure she was like all okay.
Yep.
So while they were checking her out, I was being monitored by like one nurse, like one very sweet nurse. And then like my alarms were going off. And she kind of, I just remember this moment of being like, she was just like, oh, they're just very sensitive. She like turned it off.
Oh my God.
And like went back to the computer. And I just remember her face when they just kept going off. And finally she just was like, oh, no. This is something really, really bad is happening. And it's kind of amazing. Like all these doctors then rush to me. And the science is amazing. And this one woman put like her phone over my abdomen. And I don't know how, I guess she could tell that like it was like a screen, like it was almost like a mini x-ray of some kind.
Okay.
And then they all started flipping out. And essentially like I saw Zach on the side of the room. I was able to just grab his hand, tell him I love him. And like, they didn't even tell him like where I was going. They just took me out. I was like back in emergency surgery where they were opening me back up to see what was going on. And I was hemorrhaging at that point.
Wow.
And I didn't get up for like, oh gosh, maybe like 2 days essentially, because I wasn't waking up from anesthesia. So in that time, Zach told the story here, but you know, he didn't even know where I was for most of the night. He didn't know where his baby was. And it was chaos. And that was really hard. So I didn't even meet July is her name. I didn't meet her technically. Like I had her on at Thursday at 1 a.m. I didn't meet her till Sunday. And then she went home without me. And when she went home, I didn't know if I'd ever see her again. Yeah.
I'm trying to think of how to ask this question. I mean, I think so many of us go into first pregnancy. I don't have kids myself, but I remember what my sister did. And there's an innocence, like a naivete about it, where it's like, I'm going to have a baby and like, I'm going to the hospital and I live in a really good country or a good state, at least with good medical care. And it's going to be okay. Right.
Yeah.
And like, you look at maternal mortality rates and like, you're a white woman, like that's also a good thing, like in this sense, right? Like all of these things. And I don't think that we really think about the fact that like, what our bodies go through is really insane when we give birth to a baby. There's like a fear about it, but then you're just told everybody that's ever been born has been born, this way pretty much, right? Like, and there's sort of like you'll be fine. Women have done it for the entirety of the human civilization. I just can't imagine, like, I imagine you didn't walk in there anticipating anything.
No,
the experience that you had.
I can respond to that in like two ways. Well, the first one, for anyone who might be listening to this who's pregnant, what happened to me is very rare.
Right.
But what I would say is it's super important to have a great medical team.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Now, and if you're choosing, honestly, no judgment if you're choosing to have a baby at home and do all those things, but just make sure your home is not like in the middle of the mountains.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
You want to have access. That's right.
Yeah.
Because it is a major medical event.
Right.
And you want to be able to have access to all that science has to offer. But secondly, and this is sort of a radical statement, but I am fine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just took a little longer for me to get to fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And so I think, two things that like, I think also this experience, despite being so scary, so crazy, leaving me with a rare disease, kidney function about as good as like a 70-year-old man's.
Mm-hmm.
No offense to the 70-year-old men out there, but your kidneys are not usually as good.
No.
I do count this experience as being profoundly reframed after an immense amount of post-traumatic growth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Super empowering.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because you can both face the scariest things imaginable and be the most powerful version of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Mark that, Olivia.
I know. I love
That's
it.
a perfect quote. I remember Zach talking about your mom was there.
Yes.
She was
around.
Oh
my God, yes.
And but who, like, I think this is another thing, which is like, who was there to advocate for you in the hospital, right? Because it's not a normal thing where you get hurt and you go to the hospital. Like, you also had a newborn to take care of.
Well, that was the piece. That's a great teeing up question, because the reality was Zach is an amazing advocate, but he was spending a lot of time focused on a newborn.
Yeah.
Right. So I really had to advocate for myself. At first, I had to learn the situation kind of. So, I mean, the first, especially 2 weeks in the hospital, I just was not getting better. Like 2 weeks in, I was fighting for my life. I was on and off a ventilator 3 separate times, in and out of the ICU. And finally, they put me, I basically had a case of hypoxia, which, if anyone knows, that's basically like what mountain climbers get at the top of Everest.
Okay.
It's when your brain is not getting enough oxygen.
Okay.
Sometimes, which is really spooky because you don't see it coming. Like, all of a sudden the world just gets a little funky.
Okay.
And I literally tried to escape the hospital.
Oh,
because you're a fighter.
I know. I literally, because my brain wasn't getting enough oxygen, I started getting really paranoid. And then I thought it was all not real and I was being trapped there. And this is actually not uncommon, but I tried to escape, and I didn't even know these existed. Like, the hospital has and they wear scrubs, but they're like bouncers. Okay. And I'm like a little lady, and I know I fought them. And I just remember this big bouncer guy put me back down on the hospital bed. They put me in an induced coma, and I was out for a long time. But that was the period in which Zach got a call in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
That was just I don't think you might need to prepare the fact that your wife's not coming home. And he never believed it, which is so strange. He just was like, I just knew you were going to make it home.
Yeah.
Good. And he was right.
But when I woke up from that coma, which is so interesting, I don't know whether I was infused with the power of my ancestors. I don't know what happened. But when I woke up from that coma, I was no longer a passive patient. When I got up at that point, I was very much a switch had been flipped. And I was like, what are we doing here, folks? I am not getting better. And I could tell all these doctors coming in, and I could tell they deeply, deeply cared. I saw 3 of my physicians, with tears in their eyes at the fact that I had woken up. They were really trying. But I could assess, I was a project manager for years at my day job, despite being an actor. But, I'm just a woman who is used to working on teams and getting things done and working on a project. And I was like, y'all are not talking to each other effectively.
Yeah.
What is the plan? Because I had so many different systems going wrong, from my heart to my kidneys to my blood I had almost 20 doctors working at different systems. So essentially, I just called it out, and I was like, whatever you're doing is not working. You're not talking.
Yeah.
And so and this is sort of what I wrote in my article. So they made, essentially, they coordinated my care better. They created a text chain so they all could update, because the chart was not enough. The chart was not, it was too passive. It was just this is what's happening. This is what's happening.
Right.
They needed to come together. They needed to organize.
Yeah. Right.
And that, from that point on, I didn't go back to the ICU. I mean, I still had some scary things happen to me, but I at least at that point, the progress, even health-wise, is often not linear. It was still a roller coaster, but from that point on, I wasn't on a ventilator again, and things started getting better for me. There was light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah. 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 And that must have snowballed your confidence and empowerment to just keep advocating for yourself.
Because then I realized I had all this, I was, my skin was gray and I was almost dead, but I had power and they cared. And so I just then was very active in what I knew what was happening to me. And I stayed very cognizant. I was very careful not to take so much pain medication that I wasn't aware. But I did reach a point about a couple of weeks later where I noticed something was wrong. Like I noticed I wasn't able to say what I was thinking. Like there was like, and I had like an increased shake. Then I was like, something is, because I was getting better and better. And I was like, ooh, something is like wrong with my brain.
Yeah.
And this was really where Zach had to step in, because eventually I like got aphasia, which means not being able to speak.
Yeah.
So I stopped being able to speak. And that's when I had the case of toxic encephalopathy, where basically my kidneys stopped working. So the toxins weren't being able to filter out of my body, and they eventually were poisoning my brain. So at that point, like I needed him to advocate, because I had gotten to a point where I couldn't physically advocate for myself. So it was a team effort.
Yeah.
It was a team effort, but I think it was ultimately one of the more like kind of magical realities. Even though I had aphasia, Zach could understand me, which was crazy. No one could understand me, but he could understand. And I was like, this is love right here. Like,
yeah.
The fact that he could I was like, oh my God, because everyone else looked at me like I had like Alzheimer's, you know?
Right.
But he understood you. I love that. I mean, I think that gets to what a point I was going to make too, which was like, again, when we get married, we don't think about the fact that this person is now our medical proxy.
1,000%. I mean, like marry someone who was like on it. Because they, you know, because listen, being both a patient and a caretaker are part of the human experience. This is not something, I mean, if you love, this will be part of your journey at some point.
Right. For somebody. Yeah.
Yeah. For all of us, frankly. Like, and even if you don't have a partner, like you might wind up being a caretaker for your parents or, you know, a relative. So frankly, like, this is a role all of us are going to step into at some point. So learning the skill, and I'm often talking now in my advocacy work about how like these are skills we all need to get.
Yeah. We don't have them. How would we know? Right. We're not educated in any of these kind of skills.
Yeah. It's coming. You will be either a patient and also too disabled, frankly. Everyone is going to be disabled at some point.
Yeah.
Like these are skills we all need. And a lot of times we want to go, la, 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 like that's not coming.
Yeah.
But it's coming. And some of us, it came sooner. You know, time was not a friend to me. But, you know, hopefully we can push this off as long as possible. But the reality is, you know, these are things, not to be a bummer. Sorry, y'all. Not to be a bummer.
We always talk about that
to counter you, like, because I agree with you, but to counter you and like the not to be a bummer, like I'm thinking of when I was first with my husband and we were in the islands and I got sea urchin like spine stuck in my feet. We were like 6 months into the relationship and he was like, we got to get her, because I'm allergic to a lot of things. He was like, we got to get her somewhere. Like he like swung into action. He doesn't drive. He was like driving the golf cart around the island. Like, so like, yes, it happens at that like very high level, but you can also see the glimmers of where it's happening on the lower level if you're paying attention. And if you let yourself step on a sea urchin, maybe see what happens, you know, like, but
caretaking is hot.
Caretaking is hot.
And it was so calming. I was like, well, if he's that upset, like I'm going to be okay. Like he's got it. And like, so I got to relax and it was fine. But yeah, caretaking is hot. And I think that that's for everybody, for men and women. Yes.
Yeah. Early in relationships. Yes. I think pay attention to how people take care of you when you're down, because if they're MIA, good luck.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you have to be able to step up for people and each other.
Yeah.
That's part of love as a verb. You know?
Love is a verb. Yeah.
Love is a verb. And that's how we show it.
And it is so common for especially men to leave women when they're sick. It's so common that it's talked about, right? Like social
Divorce
workers
rates,
will tell women when they get diagnosed with things that this might be the end of their marriage. So maybe Taylor needs to write a book about that. So I'm so curious, you know, as somebody, I do a lot of studying about like the subconscious mind and like, you know, the body and the mind, whatever. What was it like coming home? And then how did you then go on the next phase of your journey to like deal with everything that happened in the hospital?
Well, it's interesting. Coming home was not the end of what I would call acute stress, right? Acute stress meaning like when you're in the thick of it.
Right. Yep.
So coming home for me didn't, you know, you, especially when you're in a hospital a long time, you sort of fantasize going home.
Yeah. Right.
But for me, going home, everything was new. Yeah. Everything had changed. I didn't go back to a place I knew. I went to a new place that a baby lived in. Everything was moved around.
Yeah.
You know, other people had lived there.
Yeah.
Moved everything.
Yeah.
I was also like a bull in a china shop, even though I couldn't walk. I would get so frustrated anytime I tried to do something for myself and I'd hit roadblocks. I'd get angry. You know, I couldn't. I had July. She was born in January, even though her name was July. It's a whole story. It's July all year for us. But I had her in January. I was not cleared to pick her up till April. Wow. So I couldn't even comfort the baby. And I think the biggest part that was so hard for me was coming to terms with disabled motherhood.
Yeah.
And not getting to be the mother I had imagined in my head for like essentially the romanticism of mother in my head.
Yeah.
I just didn't get that. And also too, coming home, because my situation was so dire, my kidneys still didn't work when I got home. So thank goodness for outpatient dialysis, but I was spending every other day, almost an entire span of what would cover almost 8 hours, going and getting dialysis treatment.
Wow.
It was not like I was home with my baby all the time.
Right.
And it was so, and I also didn't know if my kidneys were ever going to get better. Like that was a big question mark because they were so damaged. So it was a really, really coming home, my definition of home had to change. You know, again, like this place that, and I even told this story a bit on The Moth. They had a theme night of home, and I talked about how like home, the place I lived in had to become the place I needed. It didn't stay the place that I always knew. We had to adapt it. In some ways it was great because we actually don't have a huge space, but thank goodness, because I couldn't walk. you know, like forget stairs. Like we have like 3 steps, but you know what I mean? Like I eventually could coast on the wall, and then, you know, slowly but surely, you know, gain autonomy. And slowly but surely, like that we called it hot port summer because I had a big port, but that was really a complicated time.
Yeah.
I gained a lot of strength back. I worked really hard to gain my strength because my goal, I told to my PT, was to pick up my baby.
Yeah.
Right.
Like it was so hard to have her cry and look at me, and me just being not able to just swoop her up, you know?
Yeah. That's, I would imagine, very difficult on a primal level.
Yes. Yeah. It really was. But then I was just like, but you know what? There's a lot of mothers who are disabled who do this in an atypical way. And I need to figure out how I'm going to do this.
Right.
And it became just such a project. But eventually I did like get to have like 9 months is about how long I was on dialysis. And I did eventually, by like a miracle. I mean, like people don't just get off dialysis very easily. I don't say this lightly in that I'm essentially a miracle. JJ is a miracle. The fact that she survived is a miracle. She had clots all through her cord. Which they figured out after. Like I just was like, in that time, you know, on dialysis, I started writing because you have all this time. You're tied to a machine.
I was going to ask what you do during that time.
At first, I watched Food Network.
Sure.
TCM.
Yeah. That's where you start.
Most of the people in the room are like, I mean, God bless them, but they're super old.
Yeah.
Like, I was like coming in my like biker shorts and, you know, like the anomaly. But I would eventually realize, you know, like, oh, I'm just going to use this time to get creative. I bring my laptop. And that was sort of like this time where I started writing. I wrote about what happened to me, and it sort of acted as like kind of like an exposure therapy.
Yeah.
You know, kind of revisiting what happened to me. And that's where I started writing the book that I'm working on. So, yeah. So, keep going. Yeah.
No, I have a question for you. You were clearly are a survivor and like a fighter, but that's not like, where did that come from? Like where in your body there must have been something, a spark of something from who you are and who you were born, that you just knew that you had to keep going.
Well, I don't know if as I like try to think about like why I'm someone who is pushing so hard. Two things, I think. One, I think it is true that in my life, I haven't had it like easy necessarily. Like my own father was a bit of a tornado.
Yeah.
And I learned from a young age that, you know, life is complicated. And he eventually just like left one day and didn't tell us, my mom and I, like, just, he went golfing and like never came home.
Long golf game.
Yeah. In some ways it was like truly, truly devastating. We knew he was fine because he took the money.
See, I knew there was more. I knew there was more to the story. I was like, she's a strong, you are a bad bitch that is like here to change the world. And I can see that. And that's why, like, when I met Zach and we met Zach, I was like, I think they were really supposed to meet Taylor because I knew she was one. So like, I mean, I knew there was more there. So what happened? So how old were you when that happened?
11.
Yeah.
So I was like, it wasn't like I was so small that I didn't know the guy. You know, he had been my dad for most of my childhood, but he was also like he was a terrible drinker. He like really was chaos. So like, I think from an early age, I had to develop a lot of coping mechanisms to deal with a parent who was so ill-equipped to be a parent. And ultimately, even though I dealt with a ton of like what I would call abandonment issues, because let's face it, like even when someone's a mess, if they're your parent and they leave you and they don't say bye, you go like, oh, am I not worth loving? Like
100%. 100%.
It left a hole in me. But I also was like, thank God you pieced out, because you were a mess. You made everything stressful. So I think by telling that quick story, not even that quick in my life, but I just understand life under stress.
Yeah.
From a very early age. Life under extreme stress.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think there's a piece of me that understands what it is to live in a place of fear and disruption. And how to just like keep moving through it.
Yeah.
And not letting it stall you, but like, you know that, you know, nothing, you know, even stressful situations don't last forever. And you just have to keep going. But the other piece to answer your question is, I think truly July was a massive motivator to get my like mental health and strength. Like she was my North Star, right? I was like, I need to be the mother. Like I need to like be there for her, because you know, like I think in these times, like it's really easy to focus on yourself and trying to like But really, I was like, I need to live for her. I need to get home for her. I need to get home to my baby. Like the ICU nurses called me the mama, which is ironic because I really wasn't doing much mothering. But I think my version of mothering was to fight to get home to her.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That's also interesting. What you were saying is, yes, you know what it's like to live in stress and chaos and not die.
Yeah.
Right. That's kind of the end of that sentence, right? Because you did the same thing. And again, to circle back to not being able to pick up July as a child that was abandoned, right? That must have really triggered, because our parents got divorced when I was 10, and I was very close to my dad. I have the same. I'm not worthy. My dad left. Whatever.
Totally.
We still love him and he's great, but he's, there was a lot of shit there.
Yeah.
And when my children cried, it was so triggering to me in a way that I couldn't express to maybe other people that hadn't had abandonment issues. And so to not be able to physically comfort her must have been incredibly just painful. We
were both infantilized.
Right.
Yeah. I even too, couldn't really walk, was also depended on Zach or, our family who were there. It was we were both kind of two babies,
Yeah.
But, again, as I say, always, nothing just stays the same. I mean, some things stay the same, but actually, and that's not even true. I contradicted myself, but I would say nothing truly does.
Yeah.
Right. It can't.
Entropy, right? It just keeps moving.
Yeah.
Yes. So essentially, I think when you're in these times of unknown, you just kind of have to keep going.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just do what you can. If you feel like you're drowning, just hold onto a rock, because at some point the water will calm. It's just,
I love that.
This process, flowing through the experience instead of fighting it. I was this is hard. And thank God I had a good therapist too.
Yeah.
God, universe, whatever, brought me a lovely therapist who I saw twice a week because I'd hit my out-of-pocket max,
Yeah.
Bring it on. Let's do it. What else can we add in, right?
I would love to know how it changed your marriage. How did it change your marriage? How did it change that relationship?
Profoundly. Yeah. I think, listen, chronic illness is not necessarily great on a relationship.
Yeah.
I don't truly recommend it. But it changed it in a lot of ways. I would say, I think in monogamy, again, when we talk about things don't stay the same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This disruption in our life also made us very bonded.
Yeah.
Because we both, it shook us both up. One of us could literally die. So I think it was definitely this sort of new appreciation for each other. And even too, it's funny, Zach is such a great dad too.
Yeah.
And seeing him be a dad, I fall in love with him over again.
Yeah. He's one of our favorite dads. We love Zach.
He's such a good dad.
Yeah.
But it's not always easy. I have so many more needs. I'm not the partner I was before, right?
Yeah.
Zach is really, he's kind of amazing. I don't think he'll mind me saying this, but he's got so much energy. He's always let's go. And now I cannot always just go. That is not part of who I am anymore. And it's sad, but sometimes I'm just take July and go to the beach. I'm just going to go lay down.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm sad that I can't be part of the Just Go team anymore. But when I'm feeling better, I try to, I try to compensate, but I'm definitely always a little sick, unfortunately now, on some level. It's oh, I have this or I have that, or, it's always a complicating. I'm the less fun parent for sure. He's the fun parent.
But also, like you're also might be the parent that she gets in bed with and like watches movies with when she's a little bit older.
1,000%.
You know, there's going to be a lot of things that you do with her that like just mom and daughter things. And also, like, nothing stays the same. Like, we just have no idea what the next thing is going to look like. So
that's right.
I don't think that you're the less fun parent. I think that you may be the slightly more tired parent, but there's always a slightly more tired parent.
Yeah,
at least you have a chronic illness.
I was going to say that.
You're like, well, mommy, see her diagnosis.
Yeah. So, Taylor, you are very open about the fact that you took this really shitty lemonade you were served and made it much sweeter. So what are you doing now, and what is your book about, and like how have you taken everything you've gone through to really like you've really changed your whole career and
well, see, that wasn't even really my fresh start. It was I was laid off, which is another like, if we want to talk, that's like a whole nother podcast talking about the stats on mothers and their careers after a child is appalling. And so I was laid off like 6 months after returning to work full time. And the details on that I write about somewhat in my book, just because it profound getting laid off for me from this job that provided me health insurance stability. I'd worked there for like 15 years. It was super stable. It was sort of representing for me, like, and this is like maybe my other fresh start. Yeah. It represented to me the fact that I could never go back. Like, I'm never going to get the life back that I had before. Like, it was like, oh, whatever the universe has in store for you, it is something completely different. Yeah. Because I think I was fighting really hard to get back to where I had been career wise, essentially. Like, and I was like, okay, this means I have a new path. Now, I was still writing the book. I'd still started my Substack Rare Disease Girl, but I was doing that and my career. And so after that, when it was sort of like, okay, your path is completely new now. You're going to have to like figure it out. I was sort of licking my wounds for a summer, and I had another ex-coworker who was just lovely, Kristen, who worked in marketing, and she was like, I just think you're great. You have so many great like learnings and things you're writing about in your Substack. And so she urged me to write an article and then helped me pitch it. And that's the Huffington Post article that I remember the day they dropped it, seeing it on everyone's phone. Like all of a sudden everyone was like, you're in my
everywhere.
Phone.
It was everywhere. Yeah.
It was everywhere. And I was like, wow, this is, clearly what I have to say matters, first of all. Yeah. I would just hide in the corner of the internet. You know what I mean? Like, but it really resonated with people. I think that what we really all want is we want to know that there's a path in a scary time, and that's essentially what my book is about. But it's not just, my book is like 3 parts, 1 part, the hospital, but I write a lot about life after the hospital because that's life, right? Right. Like that's like the first part of my book is very harrowing. Like my friends are like, oh my God, it's such a read. My beta reader friends and like the folks that have read it. But the second parts are about just like normal life, like being on dialysis and even like trying to have a sex life. Like it's about trying to parent and having a chronic illness. It's about, your career. It's about like trying to put the pieces back together because it would be really exciting to end the book at me going home, but that's just not the end of the journey.
No, it's not. Your journey is just beginning.
Oh, I'm sure it is.
It definitely is. So how can people support you in all of your work?
Yeah. So I think, right now, like find me on Substack, Rare Disease Girl. I write pretty bi-weekly if I'm not like completely melting into a chronic illness hole, but I do write a lot there, and it's not a bummer. It's not just about like my journey. It's really both tools for like dealing with the health issues of life. Like even just like, y'all think about social media before you get sick and how you want to approach it as a family. Like that was something that happened to us where Zach was a big sharer. And I remember like not having any agency in that because I was basically so sick I didn't even know. So, and I remember at first I was kind of mad because he shared like so much. I mean, he needed to, but I was also
by the way, I remember watching it play out in real time. Yeah. And like the whole thing, because he does love to share and I've been following him for years and being like, oh shit, like it was scary to follow it in real time.
Very scary. Yeah. But part of me was like, I don't know if we would have had a discussion beforehand, if I would have had you all even go through the drama of that. You know what I mean? Like it was a lot. Right.
That's
so like having those discussions like around a dinner table when everyone's healthy. Like what do you want to share on socials? What's off limits? Like,
I think so much of the work you do, and I love your Substack, is that anything can happen at any time. Right. And I think that we forget that, right? We're like going around our life, but like it could be a car accident. It could be a divorce. It could be whatever. Yeah. My marriage ended in one moment, right? My friend texted me, what's going on? And I was like, oh, my husband just said he's leaving, right? Like it literally, like anything could happen at any moment, right? Whether it is a health issue, whether it's a kid, that needs to be taken to the emergency room. And it's like, we don't talk about, and we talk about this a lot on this podcast. We love to fetishize and talk about the beginning of things, right? Marriages and babies and all this. We don't like to talk about the worst case scenarios or the what ifs or the ending of things, right? And so what you are doing is giving people permission to talk about all these things.
Thank you. I definitely am trying to make people also have peace with the realities of the fact that we're all biologically human. Like, like
you're not getting out alive. Yeah.
I think it was like Suleika Jawad who said like being alive is a terminal condition. Like, and I don't mean to say that to scare people. What I want to say to that is to wake up.
Yeah.
Wake up and be grateful for those days where like nothing goes wrong. Everything is beautiful. Everyone is safe. Yeah. Wake up to the simple, don't just like look at your phone every breakfast. Like, I mean, even I'm still guilty of like trying to like tap out from like everything because of my ADHD, but like be aware and be so beautifully grateful for just the simplest things. And I think too, like this world just always asks us to want. Like our Instagrams or, all the algorithms are like, let me show you this thing that you don't have, that you didn't know you needed, but now you want. Yeah. But what I want to show you is the fact that all that's great, but all that's extra credit. Like if you have your Maslow's hierarchy of needs, base needs met. Yeah. Like if you are, be grateful because there are times when those things get disrupted. Yeah. I didn't like gratefulness was like, it's such a funny thing. For me, it was like a practice before all of this. It was it was like meditation. Like I had to like be like, okay, now I'm going to like have a moment where I'm grateful. Okay? Right. So, yeah. But what's really shaken me up to this, and I think people that often, like the Bhutanese culture too, does this where they think about death a lot. And they like, in thinking about death, they actually are happier.
Yeah. Interesting.
Because what you're doing is you're going, oh, like heaven is here. And if we don't like see that sometimes, we're really like unconscious to what's the true beauty of humanity and each other and love and, our beautiful planet before we like totally ruin it with fossil fuels. But like, but there's it's a beautiful place to be. And, if talking about all the scary things makes you like go into a place of like, oh God, like just stop and just look out the window and hear the birds and just feel like in this moment, even though scary things might happen, that in this moment, I'm okay.
I love that.
And this moment can be infinite, you know?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm just so excited for your book because you're a beautiful speaker and you have so many beautiful thoughts. So before we let you go, we have our 2 last questions. One, what would be some wise words that you would give somebody going through a fresh start?
I think don't judge your emotional state. Because I think sometimes we really judge how we show up emotionally.
Yeah.
Whether it's, you know, feeling waves of fear, waves of just feeling sorry for ourselves, waves of, you know, whatever it is. That true strength to me is not just being fine all the time. True strength is feeling all of it.
Mm-hmm.
The capability to feel all of it.
Yeah.
That is strength.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. Love it.
Yeah,
see, when we had Zach on and he said you need to talk to Taylor, he said she's the most wonderful human ever. He wasn't wrong. So 5 points for Zach. Okay, our last question, the hardest question, Taylor. What was the last thing that you ate and truly loved?
Gosh, that is a good question. You know, honestly, we I had like a really good bagel the other day.
Always.
Like there's a place near us. It's called in LA, like affectionately Carb Corner, because it's like 2 bagels places right next to each other, and they're both like excellent. And and it's close enough that we can walk there. And they just have like the loveliest. Like I got a sesame seed bagel with cream cheese, tomato, capers, lemon zest, some cucumbers, some onions.
It's very New York. That's a very New York style bagel.
I'm gonna say something crazy, but I could back it up. And like it's probably a whole nother podcast, but like LA is really the bagel place now.
Wow, okay. The bagel place. Not just LA has some good bagels, but
LA's
the bagel place.
Bagels are like 10 years ago, I would never. I felt like I needed. I'm from the East Coast, y'all. Like
no.
I know I'm from the East Coast. The bagels now in LA are like the best bagels.
Okay, I'm just gonna ask you one question before we let you go. When was the last time you had an East Coast bagel, though? Was it recent?
Yeah, I mean, like whenever I go back, I feel like I have like one. I just wanted to make sure
because like it's like when I don't eat like regular cream cheese. I like tofu cream cheese because I have dairy issues, and so it's like I know that I can't be like this is as good because I know I don't remember what cream cheese tastes like anymore.
No. We even have like there's even a place here that ships water.
I've heard this.
Coast.
Yeah. Okay.
It's pH, interesting. The pH balance, and they make the bagels with the water.
I've heard this.
Like LA. I'm an LA stan at this point, and the food in LA is amazing. So, you know, for all of its faults, you can get
no pun
anything
intended.
here.
Yeah,
for all of its faults.
Yes,
now I want to do like a whole bagel episode.
I know,
and
we'll have to have you come back to do a whole bagel episode.
But also, like, I want to also message. Yeah, find me too on Instagram. Say hi to me there. Taylor Coffman Made. That's another place to come and. I always drop thoughts there and things like that because also too, and I'll be completely like transparent about this as I'm working on the book. Like the agents are all just like, you need a following to get traditionally
go follow Taylor.
Published.
Yeah.
So please,
we know.
I'll follow you back. Frankly.
Well, we will promote the heck out of you, Taylor. We're such big fans of your work and what you're doing. And when I say you are really truly at the embryonic stage of your next path in life, I really mean it because, you know, we're just so proud of you and so excited that we crossed paths. And anybody that can take their horrible stuff and turn it into a way to help other people and not be so bitter and angry about it is a very rare type of person, no pun intended. I mean, and so, you know, just keep doing what you're doing and keep sharing your story because it will save lives and it will help give people words.
I mean, I think one last thing that I always think about is like before all of this happened, I just didn't have a purpose beyond my own ambition.
Mm-hmm.
And now I feel like my purpose is so much clearer. Yeah. And thank you, Olivia. I feel like I literally, you're talking to me at a moment. It's so interesting. Like when this drops, I'll probably listen to it and go like, oh, listen to her. Because I really don't know what's next. Like I just finished my last project I'm literally just like, I don't know what's next. I'm just like stepping in hope and like just putting out the good energy. And I just have to have faith good things are coming. And I hope that feels true for listeners too, that, you know, sometimes we just don't know what's coming, but you know, just walking in hope and good vibes, man. That's what I'm trying to do.
When you give good, you get good. When you give good, you get good. And that's what we believe here. And you are giving a lot of good and a lot of hope. And you know what? You survived for a reason.
That's you know? I do feel like that. I came back with a new assignment. I say that all the time. I absolutely came back with a new assignment. I am so excited to watch your journey. Truly. Thank you so much for being here, Taylor. Oh, I loved like getting to actually talk to you and meet you. I feel like we see each other on socials, but it was lovely to get a chance to interface with you personally. It was lovely.
Manny, you're welcome back anytime. Thank you for listening to today's episode. A Fresh Story podcast is produced by Fresh Starts Registry, the first and only platform for everything you need to begin again, from home items to Hype Team and everything in between. You can learn more and read today's show notes at afreshstory.com.
Are you a freelancer, solopreneur, writer, creative, or professional looking to achieve your goals within a supportive community? Have you found that working from home on your own gets lonely? That you're missing the accountability and community of a positive workplace environment? We understand. And we're so excited to introduce you to the Fresh Starts Collective. For just $35 per month, gain access to 6 daily offerings a week, including virtual co-working, open office hours for business coaching, accountability sessions, and networking opportunities. Enjoy expert workshops, monthly events, and an extensive content library. Connect with marketing, design, and writing professionals to brainstorm and grow together. Surround yourself with accountability, community, and growth. Elevate your journey with the Fresh Starts Collective for only $35 per month. Visit freshstartsregistry.com and join us today.